All right, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Wahpeton School District Office Conference Room. We're here to discuss the issues that obviously everybody knows about what's taken place last week in an elementary classroom. We're here to share information. We're here to let you guys have firsthand what we've heard. A lot of things through social media have been assumptions on both sides, and we're here to just to either confirm and from our standpoint what we know. We won't take any questions afterwards because we've worked hard with all parties involved over the last week, and I think both sides know kind of where the information is and what's accurate. Now we just want to get it out to the public. I'm Rick Jacobson, Superintendent of Wahpeton School. On my left is Jake Dodge, Wahpeton Elementary School Principal, and on my right, Dr. David Woods. He's a high school English teacher at the Wahpeton School, and he's been used around the state a little bit to deal with situations that have similar to this. So David and I have talked a lot about things in the last 36, 48, 54 hours about, you know, what things maybe even I thought were just, what's the big deal? Well, we're here to clarify that, and we're also going to give a kind of a vague plan on what we're going to do as a district moving forward to deal with cultural diversity, awareness, things like that. And David's got some good ideas, and we're going to rely, and he'll share some of those things. We don't have a concrete plan in place, but we're going to lay out what the intent is behind this whole thing. The question or the issue at hand deals with a fifth grade teacher, Mrs. Barb Michelson. She's a veteran teacher. She's like everybody's grandma, soft-spoken like us. I mean, when I say grandma, my age, you know. And it was never an intent. And when people hear reenactment of the George Floyd situation, I'm sure they think about him pinned down on the ground, knee on the neck, and all this stuff for how many minutes. You know, we want to clarify that that was not the case. Now, did an event happen in the classroom? Yes. It was brought to our attention. From what we know, it happened the week after the Derek Chauvin murder trial ended, something during that time. So the dates, you know, 2-3 weeks ago or whatever, but it just came to us last week. So we're trying to just figure out what to do. The investigation, which Mr. Dodge will tell you kind of what he found, which supports all the information that we have on both sides and who we dealt with on the families that brought it to us. Barb is a very well-respected teacher. I mean, I think it was one of those things that was caught up in the moment. Kids ask questions, they're inquisitive. And I've told people, and I talked to David too, and I said, you know, I probably would, that could have been me. You know, kids talk about it and say, you try to talk them through it and what happened, but it could have been a teachable moment if we had it done in maybe a different manner. Now, what that manner looks like, we as a district have to figure out what can we do to take on those type of tough questions moving forward, because as a teacher, I don't want to restrict them from having those conversations with kids that will be part of history, and I'm sure this situation will be part of history 5-10 years down the road. So I really hate that teachers are going to be scared to have discussions, which I fear that they might, but we're going to work through it and figure out how do we not get into this situation on something, and with David's help and his resources that he has, I think we can do that. And so at this time, I think, Mr. Dodge, if you want to kind of just talk us through what the findings that you found from the investigation. I want to clarify, Mr. Dodd did the investigation with students the morning after we were notified that this went on. So it's not like people think, well, what have you been sitting on? Well, we had to figure out, and it got to be a bigger deal that we had to work through some issues. Not that we were trying to hide anything, because that's not what we want to do. We just had to figure out what's the appropriate course of action, how to get into it and deal with all the different parties involved, and I think we did that, but I'll let you have the floor, Mr. Dodge.
All right. So last Tuesday, we were made aware of this possible incident through a Facebook post, and as soon as we were made aware of this, I reached out to the individual that posted this, and I left a message asking them to call me so we could do some fact checking. And the next morning, we met with this individual. They shared their concerns and what could have happened in the classroom. And then shortly after that meeting, we started investigating and interviewing the staff member and the students in that 5th grade block. And there are some consistencies there that Mr. Jacobson said that actually happened. And there are some pieces, because we're dealing with 5th grade students here, that some pieces were inaccurate. But we do know that students were talking about the case, and there were some questions that came up during the current event. We do know that students did have their hands behind their back. They were on the floor, and it was being used as a teachable moment of how wrong this is, and we don't want to put anybody in that position. Students said that they were asked to then stand up and check their pulse so they could see that the position they were in did affect their breathing and how they felt as an individual. From there, the activity concluded. So based off that information, I brought this to Mr. Jacobson right away, and then the discussion started with how do we handle this moving forward.
Okay, like Mr. Dodd said, it was one of those things that some of the stories may have changed a little bit, but the overall series of events was portrayed accurately. And I know that's where things were going out on media, on both sides, going after people, and there was truth to what was brought to our attention rather than, no, it never happened. And my first thought was, and I talked to David, well, okay, what's the big deal? Just because, it was there. So to me, it's the next piece of this, when David takes the mic here and kind of shows, it shows that, yeah, we all think it's normal, but there's things that obviously it's an issue that I'm not saying I understand, because obviously I don't understand like that, but I need to be more aware of why is that a problem. And I told David this morning too about a couple months ago when all this stuff was crazy nationwide, I was going to get him in and say, fill me in, what am I missing on this whole thing? Because I think I have a fairly good idea, but obviously I need a deeper understanding of what's going on in the country. And I think, this was always something, I always thought big schools, big town. But because of our student population, which is quite diverse, I think, for a town our size. And so we need to be aware of how it affects kids. Like in Mr. Dodge's interview process, some kids maybe felt it was not a big deal, or they were wondering why they were doing it. It was helpful. Some maybe felt uncomfortable. It's never our intent to make kids feel uncomfortable in a learning environment. And if we have been, maybe shame on us. And that's kind of this awareness piece that hopefully we can get in, that we don't get to that point. So, Dr. Woods, your perspective and where you think we can go with this.
My name is Dr. Woods, Dr. David Woods II. When Mr. Jacobson asked me to lead the district on this journey concerning next steps, we all recognize that it is crucial to move the district forward in a positive direction. We're going to provide both staff and students with tools that encourage understanding, which will build our community in a meaningful way by focusing on these steps. We're going to analyze factors that influence but are not limited to hiring practices, professional development, teaching and learning, and behavioral discipline. Thank you. Thank you for coming. Again, we're not taking any questions right now.
Thanks, everyone.